All right, so we'll kick off. First off, to start the session, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters, and culture. I pay respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. So I'd like to welcome everyone to our very special World Blood Cancer Day Star Seminar with Rowena. For those who don't know me, I'm Laura Marshall. I'm the brand and story specialist in the strategic communication team, and I've had the great privilege of working with Rowena over the past month or so to bring her story to our online blood cancer community. We're extremely lucky and grateful to have Rowena here today. Thank you so much, Rowena, for taking the time to talk to all our staff. It's a real priority for our organisation going forward to have that connection with the people actually living through the experience. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for getting in touch with me. Like, if it wasn't for you seeing what I'd posted on the Leukemia Foundation's AML page, this wouldn't be happening and my story wouldn't be out there. So, no, thank you for getting in contact. Like I said in my reply to you, it absolutely shocked the hell out of me that someone wanted to actually talk to me and see what has been going on for the last 4 years.
Yeah, well, it's an incredible journey, and the way that you talk about it in such a candid and real way is really refreshing, and I think a lot of people on this call are going to really appreciate how much you have to share with us. After 2 relapses and subsequent transplants, it's been quite the roller coaster, and there's really nothing more powerful than a story. So, pardon, 3 relapses. That's right. Sorry, corrected me. But yeah, I think there's nothing more powerful than a story, and that will become really clear over the next hour as we hear what Rowena has been through. We'll have time for questions at the end, so make sure that you post them in the meeting chat or you can use the hand up function at the top there, and I'll give you the floor to ask Rowena some questions. So let's get started. Let's start where all good stories start, and that is at the beginning. So Rowena, if we could go back to December 2016, you're only 34 years old at the time. You were looking after a little 2-year-old girl, Hayley, and you're preparing to host your whole family for Christmas. So what sort of happened in the lead up there?
It was the first time that, I'd ever, normally we'd gone to mum's for Christmas or Trev's side of the family, and it was like, no, I want Christmas at my house. I've got the room. So I was running around cleaning, doing this and doing that, and I was just feeling really run down. I had mouth ulcers, and it just got to the point I was so exhausted and I didn't know what was wrong. And I just I think that day I just constantly started falling asleep. I think it was the 21st, and I've gone to Trev, I need to go to the doctors. So we tried to go to the doctors. They weren't open. He took me up to the hospital, and about 24 hours later, I found out that I had leukemia and was transported to Canberra.
So your mum and dad were in Canberra, weren't they?
Yeah, they gave me the options, go to Sydney or go to Canberra. And I said, no, family's in Canberra, send me there. So it was a matter of, in space of 24 hours, my world was turned upside down. I was sitting in the hospital, they'd taken bloods from me, and then the girls come back and taken more bloods because I could hear them arguing about, did you take it out of the arm that the drip's in? Because her white cell counts don't look right, blah, blah, blah. And then they've come in and gone, oh, worst case scenario, you've got leukemia. And I'm like, leukemia? And then got on the phone, Googled it, because leukemia to me was a child's disease, not something an adult my age would get. So here I am spinning out, having a look on Google. And then, about 45 minutes later, they've walked in and said, you've got leukemia. And I've just gone, oh, what? Okay. What's next? What do we do? And it was a matter of, I had to ring. Trev was at home with Hayley. I had to ring him. And then it was, got to tell mum and dad. And I've rung up and said, Mum, put dad on the phone. And she's like, why? What's wrong? And I'm like, Mum, just put dad on the phone now, because I knew I wouldn't be able to tell her, whereas dad's more centered, more of a rock. I told him, and then he's turned around and told mum, and I could just hear her in the background, and it was like, devastating. And then he's told me about, well, remember Chrissy in our family, she had APML. So
Mm.
she's like, I'll ring her, I'll see what advice she's got. And then it was a matter of sitting there waiting in the hospital going, what's going to happen?
Mm.
And then waiting for the transport to send me to Canberra. And that's when
Mm.
it started. And I think I got down there Friday. I had a bone marrow biopsy. I had this done. I had that done. I had a line put in my chest. I was absolutely exhausted. And then the next day was Christmas Day. So it
Mm.
was a matter of um, what do we do? We're going to start treatment on Boxing Day. So they pumped me up with 2 transfusions so I could actually go to mum and dad's and actually see my little girl open her presents.
Mm.
They
Knowing you
transport,
had treatment the next day to
yeah.
start.
They
Mm.
actually surprised me that morning in the hospital. I was laying in my bed feeling sorry for myself, going, I posted a photo like I should be there, Haley, watching you wake up to your Santa presents and da da
Mm.
da. And then all of a sudden I had a knock at the door, and it was mum was at the door. So they've wheeled me up the hallway in the hospital, and there's the whole family sitting there with some presents. So it was like, do a couple of blood transfusions, and then you can go spend some time with the family. And then I think I was back by about 7 o'clock, and then treatment started the next day.
Mm. The
So
chemotherapy roller coaster
yeah,
start, the first. How did you handle that going into chemotherapy? You had to go down. So Rowena is from Goulburn, we should clarify, which is about 2 hours north of Canberra, isn't
it's
it?
about 2 hours to Sydney and about an hour to Canberra. Like
Hours,
from
yeah.
here to the border, it's about 45 minutes, an extra
Mm,
20 minutes to get to the hospital. So
mm, yeah.
yeah,
And so you were staying with your mum and dad, and then that was the first time that you engaged with the Leukemia Foundation to get transport to and from the
yeah, no,
hospital
it
there?
was like sitting in the hospital. I had support workers come in and go, the Cancer Council can offer you all this stuff. We've got the Leukemia Foundation who can do this.
Hmm.
Um, these are the services we provide. We provide accommodation for your family if you need it. And I said, well, mum and dad only live around the corner, so don't need that. Maybe in future we'll see what you guys can
Mm,
offer. And then it was after the first round of treatment, I got discharged to mum and dad's, and then I
hmm.
obviously had to go back in for some more chemo, like consolidation round 2 and 3.
Yep.
And during that course of time, I got the transport from the
Hmm.
Leukemia Foundation. They picked me up from mum and dad's, took me to the hospital, and picked me up after treatment, and then dropped me home.
Yeah.
So
Great. Take away the
that
worry.
was in that aspect. It saved mum and dad actually having to take time off work to just drop me off to the hospital and back. So,
Yeah.
and I wasn't feeling capable enough to drive. Plus, my car wasn't in Canberra at all. It was sort
Mm,
of in Goulburn. Like
yeah.
from the moment I got to the hospital in Goulburn, I only had my handbag with me. I had nothing. It was like I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting such an upheaval to be
Mm,
my life to be turned upside down. So
yeah.
before I left, Trev managed to get a few bits and pieces together for me, like phone charger, this and that. And then that was it. That's all I had. So
Mm,
I went to Canberra with nothing. And during that period of time while I was in hospital, Trev would come down and bring stuff for me, or mum would
hmm.
go to shops and buy stuff. I didn't actually get to go home
Mm,
for a long period of time. So
mm.
yeah, the dogs, like when I finally got home, my big dog Bundy that I had at the time, he went nuts seeing me. It was like, Mum's back, Mum's back. So
Must have been excited. And what about Haley? So this was the first time in about 2 years that you guys had spent some real time apart.
yeah,
Since she was born, you were sort of inseparable.
yeah, no,
Mm,
Haley, I think like Haley's on the spectrum, and she's got global development delay. So I think it didn't affect her like there. I was more concerned about her, mummy, 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 where's mummy, where's mummy? But we didn't get any of that. It was like in the story, out of sight, out of mind. Because I
true.
wasn't there, she um, wasn't really. worried. And then she had
Mm.
like she'd come and visit and stuff like that. The minute she'd leave the hospital, I remember her breaking down in tears, saying goodbye and not obviously understanding. And then I'd be in tears, hearing
Mm.
howling as she's walking out of the ward at Canberra.
Mm.
And we tried doing FaceTimes, but that was really difficult. Like she'd see me and then she wouldn't see me, and then she'd play up for Trev while I wasn't home.
Yeah,
So
right.
it was very difficult at that stage. And then I think once I got home, she was all good.
Mm.
It was just, yeah, working. And at that time, we didn't realise that Hayley was on the spectrum either. We didn't find
Mm.
that out until she was about 3 years old.
Mm.
So, yeah, it was, I was expecting, where's my mum? Where's my mum? And I
Mm.
didn't get that. So that kind of hit me both ways. Like, I wish
Yeah.
that I'd hear the where's my mum, where's my mum, but in actual fact, it was kind of a relief that she wasn't doing that as well.
Yeah. Interesting.
And of course, like she's 6 now, and she's just naturally, like if I take her to school now and I'm walking up the stairs, like her school's on a hill,
Mm.
me walking up, and she's like, "Are you okay, Mum? Can I help?" And she's always very like she knows Mum's still unwell. Like
Yeah.
I remember going and getting a blood test, and she had to come with me. She nearly
Mm.
smacked the nurses for sticking a needle in me. So
Oh gosh. Mm.
she's
Protective then.
seen, yeah, she's seen all that, and now she's still very protective of me.
Yeah.
So
That's
I'm very
lovely.
grateful for how Hayley is, because she's just adjusted so well over the course of the 4 years.
Yeah. That's great. Going back to the chemo treatment as well in that first instance, can you talk a bit about the physical side effects that you had, including you talk about losing your hair, but then also like the incredible nosebleeds that you had to, even to this day, you're scared of sneezing, right? Because
Yeah.
of those
Now,
things.
like my platelets dropped extremely low, and I was sitting in the shower at the hospital, and all of a sudden my nose started bleeding, and I was trying to stop it bleeding, get out of the shower, and then Mum and Dad had actually turned up to visit, and I've gone, Mum, can you get the doctors, please? And they're like, uh, why? And I'm like, just can you get them, the nurses? And then she's gone out, and Mum's gone, Rowie needs you. And they're like, why? And then Mum's yelled back in the room, why do you need them? And I've gone, I've got a nosebleed. And then it was like, oh shit, nosebleed, nosebleed. And I didn't realize it was a thing. And that nosebleed lasted 5+ hours. It
Mm,
was, they were giving me platelets to try and coagulate the blood. They were
mhm,
giving me tablets to try and help stop the bleeding. I had ice on my face, ice on my neck. We were holding it. The pressure of me actually holding my nose so tight to stop the blood dripping out, because the minute I let go, it was dripping out like a tap.
mm,
So I was sitting there for hours holding, and the pressure of the blood had gone up, and it started coming out of my eyes. I actually looked like one of the vampires from True Blood. And
I
um,
see.
like finding the fun in it, I said to Mum, take a photo. And she's like, no. But the only way that they could actually get it to stop is they put a rhino pack, which is like a balloon. So they've shoved it up the nose, and then they pump air into it, and it's like the inside of your head's just expanding. And then they
Mm,
shot me with morphine, and they actually said to me, which was the nurses go, oh, we'll come back in a couple of hours, take it out and see if it's still bleeding. And I normally, when like I've dealt with humor with this whole thing, and I said, the minute I lose my sense of humor, everybody better run. And I lost my sense of humor that night, and I
mm,
snapped at the nurses and said, no one is effing touching my nose until the doctors come in the next morning, because if it's still bleeding, that means you've got to shove this thing back up in my head, and that's not
mm,
happening. So the nurses just went, okay, no worries. So, like I said, they shot me full of morphine, and I fell asleep. And I heard, like, Mum and Dad were sitting there in the room, and I could hear as I was drifting off because of the morphine, Mum say, I thought we were going to lose her. It was
mm,
that bad. Like, I'd lost that much blood. like I'd swallowed that much blood. At one point, I was throwing up golf
Mm,
balls that like clots the size of golf balls, and
mm,
I swung my arms and told the nurses I was choking because this clot was just stuck in my throat, and it was like I had to stick my fingers down my throat, and I actually pulled this golf ball size clot out, and the nurses have just panicked. And it's
God.
like, well, I'm swallowing as much as I'm like, we're trying
Mm,
to stop this nosebleed, and it's
mm,
just going down the back of my throat. So
mm.
it was
Crazy.
very, very scary. And every time like I've had chemo, it's make sure my platelets don't drop too low because I'm prone to nosebleeds. Make sure. And no word of a lie, I said that to them at Westmead. I think it was the last time I've gone.
Mm,
If you don't get me platelets, my nose will bleed. You've let you've let them drop. And without
mm,
about 2 hours later, my nose started bleeding. And I didn't even sneeze, nothing. It just
mm.
automatically started bleeding because of the lack of platelets in my system. So
See.
from that point onwards, they actually started listening, like, hang on, she knows what she's talking about. So they put a sign on my door, don't let my platelets drop below 30.
Mhm, mhm.
And it was, yeah, it took a long time for the doctors to actually really start listening, like, hey, I've been doing this for the last 4 years. Like, I
Mm,
know what's going to happen. I can
yeah,
guarantee you, word of a lie, you let my platelets drop below 15, I'm
yeah,
going to
yeah. Knowing your own body. All right, so let's go
bleed.
to sort of part two of your body. I know there was a few other, you had your burst appendix with the chemo as well as the losing hair, which is a huge thing.
Yeah, no, the
Yeah.
burst appendix was like, I just thought I was having cramps, and I just thought I was backed
Mm,
up. And it was like, Dad's like, no, you're still in pain. Let's take you to the hospital. And yeah, it was emergency surgery at 4 a.m. It was like, oh,
crazy.
what else can go wrong? And I think the
Yeah.
next morning when Trev and Haley came and visited, I said to Trev, I can't do this. I,
Mm,
that had just scared the hell out of me, the fact that my appendix had just ruptured.
yeah. It's
And
pretty
then I was due to start chemo again in about 2 weeks' time after that. And it's like, well, how can I go through more chemo
after
after
that
just
big
having my
surgery.
appendix taken out?
Mm,
So,
crazy. All right, let's move on to part two of your story. So you had 2 years in remission.
yep,
Those 2 years weren't all smooth sailing, though. You did have a relationship breakdown in that time with Trev.
yeah.
Can you sort of talk a bit about that and how, yeah, you managed that in those years?
Yeah, no, it was like I'd come back from obviously being away for 6 months having treatment,
Mm,
and Trev just, I think because he'd been looking after everything, like looking after the house, the dogs, Haley, he was still working full time. He
mm,
previously, when I was home, he'd have his boys' nights out. Well, he couldn't do that. So the minute I came home, he was back out again. And it was like, you can't do this while I'm still recovering. Like, I
mm,
wasn't who I was anymore. And he just didn't get that. And he went off the rails a little bit and ended up in a lot of trouble. And that's what happened between the two of us. But
mm,
the minute he came back on the scene after being away for so long. Like, I
mm,
don't know if anyone there knows, like, Trev actually got into a bit of trouble with the law and
mm,
ended up in jail for a while. But we started talking when he got out of jail, and I think it was only about 2.5 months after he'd gotten out, I relapsed. And
mm.
from that point onwards, he's been there every step of the way, and he's still here now. Like,
Yeah, incredible.
still drives me nuts. He still has his
They all
moments.
do.
Yeah, he still
Yeah,
has his moments when he forgets that I'm not who I was anymore.
yeah,
Um, like now, I still struggle cleaning the house or doing random tasks like people take for granted.
mm,
I'm getting a cleaner to help me around the house because obviously while I was gone in the last 6 months, stuff's lapsed, like
yeah,
windows filthy and all that type of stuff. And it's like I need the extra help,
to
and
help.
Trev doesn't
Yeah,
realise that.
classic man.
So, but other than that, like when it comes to Haley or if he hears me in the bathroom and I'm throwing up, because I was very sick at the beginning of the year, he's
Mm.
always there going, can I get you anything? Do you need anything? I think he's finally grown up to that point and realised that things will never go back to the way they were before I was diagnosed.
Yeah,
And
definitely
I'm a
gives you
whole person
incredible
now.
perspective. Mm,
Yeah, it
that's great.
does. And
Yeah.
even like going through what I've gone through, I don't worry about the little things anymore so much. It's not like um, when he was in jail, he said, I lost everything. And I've gone, when you left, I lost everything because you and Haley are my everything. It's not about the house. It's not about the car or the possessions. It's about people. And that was
Mm,
what I wasn't fighting for the house. I wasn't fighting for the possessions. I was fighting for my family. And that's
mm,
what I've done the whole step of the way. And it makes you wake up and realize that, oh, it doesn't matter well, I've gotten to the point where you either love me or like me, and I don't give a shit. Either way. It's
love it. Yeah.
That's how much it's woken me
Changed
up.
you.
Like
Yeah.
before, I used to worry about, oh, I wonder if this person, like you worry, like
Mm,
you worry about stuff like that. Now I don't tend to, yeah,
yeah.
like I said,
Sweat the
take
small
me as
stuff.
I am or don't take me at all.
Yeah.
And
That's
and
great.
that's the new attitude that I've
You've taken on. That's great.
gotten.
All right, let's talk about the first transplant because that so what year was it again? It was 2017?
19.
19, that's right. And you had to look overseas on the because there's no one on the Australian registry, is that right?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
they did like the full Aussie search for, like, they did all my blood typing, did the
Hmm.
full search, and came back to me and said, there's no matches in Australia for you. Obviously, either not enough people on the Australian donor registry or that. But apparently, Europe's got a massive registry over there, so that's where they went looking next, and
Hmm.
yeah, they found my perfect match according to them. We were a 10 out of 10, 12 out of 12, and because it was a male and they came from the UK, we just named him Mr. Potter because
Very appropriate.
like a recipient, you don't know who the actual donation's coming from, and you can find out years later. They
Yeah.
allow you to make contact, like send a card to say thank you and stuff. But we just thought we'll just give him a name, and because
Hmm.
he's from the UK, we'll just call him Mr. Potter.
Yeah. Love
Yeah,
it.
we love Harry Potter. We love Disney. We do all that stuff in this house
That's
and
cute.
in the family. So it was a matter of, yep, he's Harry. We'll
Here
call
he
him.
is. So how was that transplant? Can you talk about the physical effects that went on there? And
Um,
you had to go to Sydney, right? You had to travel to Westmead Hospital for the transplant, and you got
yeah,
accommodation with the Leukemia Foundation, right?
even, like when you go there, you go in at least 10 days prior to the transplant. They do a whole heap of tests. They do a whole heap of like chemotherapy to get your body ready to accept.
The
Um,
cells. Yeah.
all that seemed like in the beginning, I was coping all right. And then not long after the transplant, all the side effects from what they'd given me, which was big ice, which apparently is the strongest chemo they can give a person, hit me like a ton of bricks. I was in physical pain. I was, um,
You're pretty
yeah,
spaced out, weren't you, from the
yeah,
painkillers?
pretty, like at that point, they hadn't, um, I'd only just started getting the pain, so I wasn't on any regular pain medications. And then
Hmm.
the worse it got, they got the pain med team in and hooked me up to the machine that I could press a button every 5 minutes. And the more you
Mm.
press it, the more sleepy you get. So
Mm.
there was a period of time there that I was pressing it and pressing it and pressing it and pressing it to the point that it had just put me straight to sleep. I
Mm.
think about 5 or 6 goes of it, you can push it every 5 minutes. So within about half an hour, I'm here going, I'm going to sleep now. And that's how I was. But I was in that much pain, like I rang mum, and mum could just hear the panic. And in my voice. Like, they were coming home from working, they were still living in Canberra at the time. Well, they well, they just moved to Goulburn, so they were coming home from work from Canberra. They got home, grabbed their stuff, and within 3 hours they were in my room at Westmead making sure I was okay. Mum was ringing the doctors because I threatened to rip everything out and walk out. I'd had enough. I couldn't deal with it. I was physically crying, and Mum was so worried about me. She'd actually rung the nurses and doctors to make sure to go into the room and check on me. I was just, yeah.
Distraught. Not good at all. And then you had sort of an identity crisis at that point too, because the drugs you're on sort of made you stuck on the weight, right? You couldn't really
Yeah,
recognize
what it
yourself.
does is, having the transplant, your body tends to bloat.
Mm,
It's your muscles accepting the new cells, so everything just blew up. I couldn't recognize myself in the mirror. I was a balloon.
mm,
You used the photo that Mum took of me, and um, that was probably about 5 or 6 days after the transplant,
mm.
and
Gosh.
I just didn't recognize who I was.
Mm,
And then I'd started losing my voice, and then because the mucositis in my throat had gotten
yeah.
so bad, like, I had ulcers, my tongue was swollen, I'd put on fluid, and I couldn't physically talk. Like, every day the doctors had come in to, like, do their checkups, and I'd be sitting there writing on post-it notes, "What's my levels?"
Mm,
And that was the only way I could
God.
contact.
Mm,
And like, up until that point, I was calling Trev and Haley every night, so I could just hear little Missy's voice and speak to him, and like,
mm,
just give him an update of, like, if anything had happened and stuff like that.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden I couldn't talk.
Yeah.
So, and apparently while I was away and I couldn't talk and couldn't make contact, Haley started, um, behaviour started going a bit haywire because of the fact that she couldn't hear Mama's voice anymore. And
Mm,
just seeing my face, she likes that. I could send photos and stuff, but photos, she's like trying to touch the photos, according to
mm,
Trev. Um, yes, it was more of a, we had to do the out of sight, out of mind type thing.
yeah.
Mm.
Again.
And then the minute I got told, "We're going to discharge you," well, Trev, Haley, they were straight up to Sydney, and I spent the first, I think, week and a half, maybe 2 weeks with them, and we were put up in a hotel at Rose Hill, with the Leukemia Foundation. They paid for the whole accommodation while we were there,
That's great.
because there was no availability at Westmead at that point. And as
Mm,
soon as a unit came up, we were straight over to the units, which was so much easier because they're directly across from the hospital. Yeah, it's basically a little home away from home. The only thing I didn't like about staying there is there's no internet.
to work on that. Give
Yes,
that
but
feedback to the
yeah, I used a lot of data on my phone, just trying to keep in contact
communicate.
with everybody and stuff. Like, the Wi-Fi at the hospital is wonderful. We just need to get, like, raise more funding to get the internet put on for the people at the units.
That's it. We'll give
That would
that
be
feedback
great.
to the Access and Nav team.
Yeah.
All right. So this time round, you had 1 year in remission.
Yeah.
Um, but you
Well,
never fully accepted the cells, right, of
yeah,
your
no,
of Mr.
probably,
Potter.
like, by the time, like, I'd gone through the transplant and finally gotten home, and then finally started feeling better, it was only like I had a period of about 6 months
Mm,
before, yeah, it was 12-month checkup time for the
mm,
first transplant. And during that time, yeah, my T cells hadn't fully accepted the transplant. They were fluttering around 54,
mm,
55%. And we'd done donor lymphocyte infusions to try and boost more of a reaction in my system.
yeah.
And I
So
think,
those are extra cells from your donor to top
yeah,
up. Yeah.
yeah, apparently Mr. Potter was very generous, and there were spare cells sitting in the freezers at Westmaid. So
Mhm.
at first it only started with about 4 mils, and then it increased to 10, and then 30. So each infusion there was more cells.
Mhm.
If you've ever smelt cream corn, I could taste it because of the preservatives they use in it. The minute they inject in it, you get this weird taste of cream corn in your mouth. It's the most foul,
Strange.
and you smell like it for a couple of days. Like
Mm.
Dad goes, "You stink," and I'm like, "Sorry, not my fault."
Oh
Um,
gosh.
but yeah,
Lovely
no, it
dad.
was 12 months. We did a bone marrow biopsy. I just had a whole heap of my immunization needles because you got to do all
Mhm.
them all over again.
Yep.
And it was sitting at 4%. And I had that done in Canberra. And
Mhm.
the Westmead team like, "Oh, we don't like that. Can you come up and see us?
Mm.
And we'll do another one." And unfortunately, I got the flu. So it was like, "All right, let me get over this." So 2 weeks later, I went up there. I think it was the 25th of June. I went up there. I had the bone marrow biopsy done in the morning, and I got a call at 5 o'clock at night. I was actually at my in laws
Mm.
saying that the cells had gone to 13% in 2 weeks. So it was like, it's come back. And I lost it. I was outside by myself, talking on the phone with Dr. Gregorov from Westmead, and I'm like, I lost it. I was crying. I was like, oh God, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And then it's like, all right, what can we do? What, what's next?
Yep.
And he's gone, it'd be going for a second transplant. And I've gone, all right, what are the chances of me getting through a second transplant? What, how are we going to do this? Um,
Mhm.
So it was a matter of, yep, all right. And then when do we need to start treatment? What are we looking at transplant wise? Because obviously this was 2020.
Mhm.
COVID had hit at the beginning of the year for the second like this. And it's like, well, COVID's made everything a lot harder in relation
Mm.
to, like, I've got a few more matches in the UK, but trying to get those cells, because the ladies at Westmead, her name's Steph, she actually travels overseas, goes to the airport, waits in the airport for the cells to be delivered, and then she hops on a plane and comes back. Well, that
Mhm.
couldn't happen because of
No.
COVID. Everything had been shut down. So it was a matter of looking a little bit closer to home. And so mum got tested. My mum actually tracked down my biological father, who I have never met in my entire life, asking him to get tested, if he was a match. And then we thought, well, we'll try Ali. And Ali had just turned 19, I think it was.
She's your
And
oldest daughter, isn't she, from your previous
yeah,
relationship? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And you'd had quite
she's
a
my eldest.
strained
So,
relationship
and
during that time, hadn't you? Before that, no teenage
yeah,
years.
during the teens, let's just say yeah, teenage years, we wanted to kill each other, basically. And then,
Mm.
like mum said, like the quote from mum is, I can't believe at one stage you two were wanting to kill each other, and now she's saving your life.
Mm.
So, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. Like, she was
Super.
a perfect, obvious half match.
Mm.
And yeah,
You'd
so far,
accepted
so
all her cells, right? The cells
yeah,
had been
according
tested.
to the last test that I had, probably it would have been the 6 month transplant, bone marrow biopsy. I'm
Mhm.
100% donor on all levels. So that's T
Incredible.
cells, that's hemoglobin. I think my blood type has even changed over to hers now. So I'm fully her, like DNA wise,
Yeah, just incredible.
which
Like
is,
it's called a haploidentical transplant, isn't it? Where you
yeah.
just do half and half. Yeah. Um,
Whereas the first one was a mud, which was match unrelated donor.
yeah, yeah.
So
Pretty incredible that your own daughter has been able to step up and yeah, save your life. It's just so
yeah,
good. And
but it
you're
was
at day number 251 of remission on World Blood Cancer Day today. Congratulations. We are
thank
thrilled
you.
for you. But since since you're in remission, you've sort of taken the time to work on your mental health as well. Obviously,
Yeah,
you have a bit of PTSD from what's gone on the
yeah.
past
No,
year, but
with
you've
the,
just done
with
a
the second
meditation
transplant,
course, right?
yeah. No, well, with the second transplant, I had a lot more complications than the first one. Like, if it wasn't the liver going wrong, it was the kidneys going wrong, or the line was not working. I
Mm,
think in the last 4 years, I've had something like 8 Hickman lines. And because of that, you can feel where it's been, the actual cavity of where the lines used to sit, and my body just doesn't like them. So I had all those issues. But I was actually feeling good. I wasn't on any pain meds this time around or anything. So the fact that I was feeling good, but inside my body was just not good. And then
mm,
I was taking medications to prevent graft versus host disease. But those medications were then causing complications. Like, one medication was actually eating my new cells that were being
mm,
produced. So it was a juggling act. And the fact that I went into hospital originally with the flu, I wasn't allowed out of my room because having the flu
yeah.
could compromise the other patients on the ward. So I was basically stuck in my room this whole entire time. I wasn't even allowed to go out to the kitchen and heat my
Mm,
own food up. I had to ask the nurses. They had to come in full mask, PPE gear, you name it. So I
God.
felt like an alien. Like, even Mum and Trev had to wear masks and gloves and the whole get up when they
Mm,
came in to visit me. I just felt like a leper in a sense. Um,
God.
and then not being able to walk out of that room, like, the minute Mum would come and visit me of a morning, I'd break down and I wouldn't know why I was crying. I'd mentally snapped, and
Hmm.
I was just, yeah, I was cabin fever, climbing at the wall. So
Mm,
um, the minute I got out, I knew I needed to do something because I just wasn't coping. Like, I came home for a weekend just to be home and get some stuff so I could survive. Like, I grabbed some of my scrapbooking stuff to take with me so I've got something to do.
mm,
Um, and just seeing, like, the fact that Trevor had been coming up and seeing me every week, the house had gotten so neglected. That
mm,
just set me off. I was in
mm,
absolute tears
mm,
over the fact that the floors hadn't been vacuumed, or the floor hadn't been mopped, or there was a couple of dishes. Like, it wasn't anything major, but my health, like mental health, just
yeah.
was like a bomb had gone off in the house. It was like
Yeah.
I didn't know how to deal with that. And then I ended up back in hospital for another few days, and that was like, no, no, no. Like, I thought the first time being at Westmead was hard. I think the
Mm,
second time, not being on the medication that just put me to sleep or drugged me out, was even harder because I was more alert this time.
hmm.
Um, I knew what was going on, whereas the first one I was just,
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
Spaced out. Mm,
yeah,
mm,
basically spaced out the first time, whereas
yeah.
I remember nearly everything this time from the second transplant.
Mm.
Um,
So
and
yeah.
it's very, very, very frustrating.
Mm,
And then I ended up not being able to talk for another week or two while I was in there. So that brought the whole couldn't talk to Haley. We ended up doing, because she was a little bit older, we ended up
mm,
doing FaceTime, and I was just waving. And
mm,
Mum was with me at the time. So Mum was talking to Haley, but Haley was watching me. So
mm.
that made it a little bit better. And I think she knew, um, like, she'd grown up watching me go through
Yeah.
the first transplant. So
Yeah.
she was more alert and aware. And then I think it was, she kept saying, no more doctors, no more hospitals. You come home and I look after you. So she's gotten to that point. So now she kind of looks after Mum.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you, Rowena. I really want to give our people a chance to ask you some questions
Yep.
as well. I feel like I've hogged you, but thank you so much for running us through your journey. We're getting a lot of comments. I don't know if you can see them there on the side, about how
Yep.
inspiring it is. You can't see them. I'll send them through to you after this. Don't worry. Would anyone like to jump in and ask a question to Rowena about her experience? You
I'm
just
an
put.
open book, so
We
feel
got
free
Tim,
to
I
ask
think, has
anything.
come up. Tim's
Hi,
our.
Laura. Hi, Rowena. Thank you so
Hi,
much.
Tim.
It's really lovely to hear your story today. I was really interested to know, Rowena, about how your clinicians talked to you about GVHD, as you talked about some of the challenges you had about countering that. How was it presented to you, and how did you understand it, both physically and emotionally?
Um, I I've actually got a friend who's got CML, and he's had a transplant, and he suffers from graft versus host disease. So I already knew a little bit. And then when I went for the initial meeting at Westmead and spoke to the professor at Westmead, he mentioned graft versus host disease, and he goes, it could either happen in your lungs, on your skin, um, your liver. At the moment, I've got minor GVHD in my lungs, and because we've caught it really, really early, I'm on preventative medications and puffers so it doesn't get worse. Like one of the girls that I went through first transplant with that I met on Facebook, she's actually got major graft versus host in her lungs, and she's constantly wearing masks. She can't work in childcare anymore. And how they explain it, well, my friend Chris explained it to me. It's like um, a little parasite in your system that's come in to help your system, but then it's recognized, hey, you're not me. I don't like you. And then it just attacks you. So I did a lot of research in it, and found, not the foundation, the hospital is really good. They give you like a book on transplant, and it explains the process of what you'd go through, and there's a big section in there on graft versus host disease. And let me say, it was very scary reading some of that. Like recently, someone that I met on the Leukemia Foundation page, she actually passed away because of graft versus host disease. She had it majorly in her lungs, her stomach, on her skin. Like she'd fall over and she'd end up with massive patches of skin just falling away because of it. So it is a scary aspect of having a transplant. And the fact that I've had two is even worse. And the point of the second transplant was actually to give me a little bit of graft versus host, because a little bit is good, a lot is bad. So that was the aim of the second transplant, is to give me a little bit so we know that my body was accepting it. Whereas the first transplant, I got no graft versus host whatsoever. So that's what they think. That's why they think I relapsed after the first transplant.
So interesting.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you.
Tim.
Thank you.
Andrew, cut to you for a question.
Hi, Rowena. A huge thank you for sharing your story. It's such a amazing amazing thing for our whole organisation to hear. I work with our frontline team, so I'm privileged to hear stories like yours all the time. I just wanted to pick up on a couple of things. That really poignant remark that you're not the same person. Thinking about it literally from a DNA perspective, but also from your whole mindset. Um,
Yeah.
so I was thinking about that, but I was also just thinking about what does life look like for you right now, and I think Laura mentioned you've been doing some work on your mental health. What are some of the resources that are working for you at the moment in your life?
Um, don't sweat the small stuff at the moment. It's, if the house is a mess, well, it'll be there tomorrow. It's a matter of I've got to look after me, and I have my good days, I have my bad days, and I let Trev know if, yeah, no, fend for yourself tonight, because I'm not going to eat or I'm not going to cook. I'm just having one of those days. And he's gotten to the point he understands that. So it's a matter of just looking up, putting myself first, because before all this happened, I put everybody else before me. I put my daughters before me. I put Trev before me. and that's, Mum thinks I got to the point I was so run down. That's why the leukemia took over and started reacting in my body, because I was so run down and I was very overweight as well. I'm still a little bit overweight, but in the last, since July last year, I've lost 22 kilos due to the transplant. So at the moment, it's a matter of looking after me, because how can I look after anybody else if I don't look after me and put myself first? And after everything I've been through, I've got to put myself first. Otherwise, I won't be here to watch my little girl grow up.
And what about the meditation course and the psychologist that you decided to see, Rowena?
The psychologist was recommended through, like, Mum said I needed to talk to someone, and we had a family member that was a part of a foundation through, I think it was the police. Well, Mum and Dad's background were police, and my godmother's in there, and she does stuff with police officers who do PTSD. So she put it to them, can we do some appointments? So I started speaking to a lovely man named Ernest, and Ernest helped me get through dealing with what I'd been through, as well as trying to get rid of the ticking time bomb that used to sit in the back of my head. One thing about having leukemia, it's a matter of, like, during that 2 years of remission, thought I was free, but it's still in the back of your head. Is it going to come back for me? Is it going to come back for me? And I've finally learnt to deal with that. Yes, it still might come back for me even now, but I'm not going to let it rule my life. It's live each day as, take each opportunity, live each day to the fullest. And if some days I can't do much, well, that's all I can do. Some days, if I can do a lot, well, I'll do a lot. It's just looking after me. And then with this meditation thing, something just popped in the mailbox, and I thought, hey, Mum, do you want to go do this? And she goes, yeah, I think that'd be good for us. And it has, like, it's helped me quieten that little voice in my head that tells me I should be worrying about this, or I should be worrying about that. And it's like, why am I worrying about stuff that I shouldn't be worrying about? I just need to focus on the now, not what could happen in the future, and what's happened has happened. It's a matter of living the now and see what happens.
Great. Thanks, Rowena. Thanks, Andrew. Sam, did you want to ask Rowena a question? Sam Coon?
Hello, Rowena. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm quite new to the Leukemia Foundation, and while I know lots of my team have had connections with people with blood cancer, I haven't. So I guess my question is, imagining that I had a friend who was diagnosed. Sometimes when our friends get sick or unwell, it can be difficult to know what conversations to have, whether you ask how you're feeling. And I'm sure that you saw have seen all spectrums of that on your journey. So what would your advice be, or as a patient, what do you need from your friends? What do you need them to be acknowledging or not acknowledging, asking or not asking? Because I just think it would be helpful to understand from your experience what you need from your friends at times like this.
Like, I had a lot of friends who didn't know what to say, or and I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm still me. I'm still like, your friendship means more to me than anything else. So it was like, just maybe check in and see how I'm doing. Like, I didn't delve into what I was going through unless they asked. It was a matter of let that person who has the leukemia reach out if they need to, and just let them know that you're there if they ever need you. Like, I had one night, I just messaged my best friend and said, I just need a chat. So she rang me, and we just sat while I was sitting in hospital, and we just had a chat, and I just asked her, like, what she's been up to and da-da-da. And then she asked me. Sometimes you just need to know that someone's there if you need them. And that's about it. Like, and then when I started a blog in relation to my second transplant. I had a lot of friends not realize what I'd actually been through originally. So it's a matter of, yeah, let the person who's got that leukemia dictate what they need and what they don't do. Because at one point I shut everybody out, and that was probably the worst thing I did. That was my first transplant when I was in so much pain, and I learned from that mistake. So that's why I started the blog on my second transplant, was to let people in and let them know what I was going through, and like letting people look through, well, take a walk in my shoes of, this is what I've got to deal with today. Like, I think at one point on my blog I've gone, oh, for fuck's sake, can we just do day 10 all over again? I've had enough. And then I've had people go, well, what's happened today? And it was like, my line's screwed up again. I've got to go in for surgery and get a new line put in my chest. So there's a lot of things that I don't think a lot of people actually realize what someone like me has to go through in order to fight. Because normal cancer, you can isolate the treatment. Like if you've got breast cancer, you can remove the glands, you can do this, you can do that. Whereas blood cancer, it's actually in your blood. Unless you can drain your whole system of blood and replace it, it's not going to go away. So it's very intense what someone has to go through, and each person's journey is different. Like mine's a lot different to someone else's.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That was very helpful.
Thank you, Rowena. I also had a question actually come through from Marianne, who heads up our support team in Queensland earlier this week, Rowena. She wanted to talk about what you did in those moments of isolation and solitude, what you really found comfort in, because you talk so much about relationships and how important they are to you. Could you talk about what you did to get through?
Like I had my laptop with me, I had my tablet with me. Sometimes it helped me to go through old photos, like remembering like Haley when she was a baby, and I'd go through and sort through photos. I'd watch my favorite movie, like I'm a Nightmare Before Christmas freak. So if I was having a really bad moment in hospital and I was just sitting there and couldn't sleep, I'd turn it on and sit there and go, this is Halloween, and do something to perk myself up. Or I'd send my brother a message and just ask how he's going, because he lives in Melbourne. Poor boy's down again. So it was a matter of, messaging him and just seeing how he was going. Or, I took books with me. I listened to music, like I love Pink. So Pink was a big one. I'd sit there and rock out to Pink. Or like I said, I took my scrapbooking stuff with me. I took a little bit with me in hospital. So when I was feeling up with it, I'd sit there and scrapbook my photos just to keep myself occupied. There's a lot of time in hospital where you're just alone, and you've just got to make the most of it. Like, I know I sorted my laptop out. I got all my files organized in my laptop. I sorted all my photos out. I think, and then before I went in hospital for the second time, I got Haley to record me voice messages on my phone. So it's, I love you, Mama. I miss you, Mama. And if I was having a real bad moment, I'd go through the recordings on my phone and listen to her.
Nice.
I got her even singing songs. So there's songs on there. Like this last transplant, I was actually in hospital for my birthday. So I got her to sing Happy Birthday, and I recorded it. So on my birthday, I actually got to hear her sing. But then I saw her on, we did a video chat on my birthday, and she sang to me. So that was one of the ways that I used to just deal.
Nice. Thank you. And Andrew's got another question.
Sorry, I'm hogging, Rowena. I just wanted to also say, we know that people sharing their stories and connecting with other people that have gone through something similar is so amazingly powerful. And I just wanted to thank you for that, with the work you've done with, obviously with Laura, and through your blog, and in those moments of isolation that you speak of. You might not ever know it, but people reading your story now and into the future, can feel a little bit less isolated, knowing that somebody's gone through it, they've made it through to the other end, and they've transformed their whole way of thinking and their whole approach. I just want to say a big thank you.
Yeah, and the whole purpose of my blog was somewhere for me to vent, bitch, whinge, and just get stuff out. And I don't sugarcoat it. It's a matter of this is what's actually happening. If I'm having a real crap day, I'll let people know I'm having a crap day. I think at one point it's like, call me a cardboard box and step on me, because that's how I feel, really flat. Yeah, and the fact, like, I've had so many people comment, like, you're a warrior, I can't believe how strong you are, but you don't know how strong you are until you've been tested. And I think I've been to hell and back in the last 4 years. And it amazes me what I've actually been through, and the fact that I'm still standing here. So, no, thank you very much. Like, I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity to tell my story. It's been hard in a sense, having to relive the moments, but it's worth it in the end. Like, talking to you guys, this is wonderful. Like, when Laura gave me the opportunity, she goes, would you like to talk to us and like tell your story? And like, there's a lot of people in the foundation that don't actually get to speak to people in your situation. And I said, yep, no, I'll jump at the chance to have a chat. So the more people who know about leukemia and like what the foundation can do to help people with leukemia, the better, and the more funding you guys get. Like, I know me and Mum said, if we ever win lotto, we're donating a lot of money to you guys for everything that you've done for us. That'd be like, my mum wants to write a book of her story and then add my story into it, and she wants to donate some of the money to the foundation from that story because of what you guys have done for us. It's just amazing.
Thanks, Rowena. So good.
Everybody needs to know.
Thank you. And we've got a couple more questions. If we can just keep you for 5 more minutes, Rowena, or so, if you're all good. Catherine Treble from down in Victoria. Hope you're going well down there, Catherine.
That's right. Thank you, Rowena. That was really insightful. I just wanted to ask, throughout your varied experiences, are there any things that stand out for you that we can do better?
I don't know. Like, my experience with you guys has been absolutely wonderful. Like, the first time when I needed to go to Westmead, it was like, all right, we spoke to Astamina in Canberra, and she was like, yep, leave it with me, I'll arrange it. And then meeting Megan at Westmead, like, Megan's absolutely wonderful. Like, the minute I found out I had to go for a second transplant, well, all I did was got on the phone and rang Megan and said, Megan, I need accommodation again. I've got to come up for another transplant. She goes, oh, no. So she goes, no worries, leave it with me. We'll do that. Like, my experiences with the people that I've dealt with the Leukemia Foundation have been absolutely wonderful. I don't know what else you guys could do. Like I did light the night while I was sitting in hospital this year with I had my torch with me in hospital. So I don't know. I think you guys are doing a wonderful job, in my personal opinion.
Thanks, Rowena. If there is anything that you think of ever, please let us know. We're always looking at ways that we can do things even better.
Great. Thank you, Kath. Danielle, would you like to ask your question?
Hey, Rowena. Thank you so much. I'm sitting here I'm taking it all in and writing notes. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. I just wanted to know, I'm in a village here in South Australia, and we have a lot of obviously patients and their carers. And you've spoken so much about your mum and your family and Trev and your daughters. Is there any additional things that you think would make the process easier on all those additional people that help support you? I think just hearing how much you've mentioned mum in particular is so beautiful, and not everyone has that, but what would help them through this journey as well?
I think more like possible like partner support might be better, because I know Trev really struggled after my initial diagnosis. Like, it hit us all like a ton of bricks, and then after I'd come home, I think more help in relation to getting families to adjust to their new normal. Like, it was like, there was no way I was going back to who I was or who I had been after everything I'd been through after the first lot of treatment. It was, all right, got to find my new normal. And a lot of people don't understand that after you've been through treatment, you're not going to be who you were previously. Your body's physically not. Like, now I've got lung issues. I've never had lung issues in my life. Well, now I've got lung issues due to graft versus host. So I'm on a puffer. That's something completely new to me. It's probably helping partners and family and support carers adjust to what the new normal is going to be. Like, mum checks in with me every couple of days to make sure I'm doing all right. She goes, "Are you having a good day today?" And I'm like, today's just one of those days. And she's like, "Take it easy." It's a big adjustment for everybody, not just the person who's going through it. It's not just you. Like me, I go through the chemo, I go through the radiation, I go through the transplant and the transfusions and this, and it's my family who actually sees me go through it. Like, mum's like, "I wish I could switch places with you," or if it was like, that's what mum would say, "I wish I could switch places with you." You never want to see your kids in so much pain, and like, I'd do it all over again if I could if Hayley had what I had, I'd probably be in the same position as mum. Mum's felt very helpless, and the fact that hasn't like had a, what's the word? Like, she's been feeling helpless watching me suffer, but there's nothing that she can do to fix that. I think more support for carers, family, is a big.
Do you think, Rowena, that your family would feel, or they probably have, and I don't know, but would they feel comfortable reaching out for support and asking for support, or do you think it's easier for the patient to ask for support?
I like with someone like Trev's very old school. He thinks psychologists and counselors are just nuts. Someone like Trev, no. Mum, yes. Like, mum's very open to stuff like that. Like, she's got a background in police, so she's been through bits and pieces and asked for help. Like, my dad's had a full mental breakdown due to PTSD as well, so he'd be someone that would ask for help. I think because of our family and history, we would ask for help if need be, but someone like Trev, no. So I think it might be, I asked what I could do to help Trev.
Yeah.
Like, is there any support services, like in relation to like my daughters, Ali, with what she's been through, being my donor, seeing me go through all this and stuff like that. She's actually hooked up with one of the foundations. Not the leukemia one. I think it's with Canteen.
Okay.
For people dealing with cancer and their families, that she's actually doing counselling. through canteen. So that was another thing that I thought was really good. Like I had so many different places wanting to reach out and help, and different services. Like you guys were wonderful with the accommodation and helping with travel and stuff. Yeah, more, I think more, it'd be the patient probably going, yeah, they're struggling, go help them.
Yeah.
I've got the doctors looking after me. Who's looking after them? While they're watching me go through what I'm going through.
Thanks so much, Rowena, and thanks,
Thank
Danielle.
you.
Appreciate the question. We're just going to have one more question. I'll just keep you for 5 more minutes. We just got Karen. You can do the last question.
Hi, Rowena. It's so lovely to meet you after following your story over the last few weeks. And it's nice to see that you're doing so well at the moment. I would love to know if you had one message of hope or one really valuable piece of advice to pass on to somebody who's just been newly diagnosed with a blood cancer, what would that be? Your one golden nugget, your one pearl of wisdom that you'd like to share to someone?
One day at a time, because that's all you can do. It's every day is different, especially while you're in hospital going through treatment. One day you might be right, the next day you might be in the bathroom throwing everything up. It's a roller coaster of a ride. So one day at a time, and even like me and my sister-in-law just keep swimming, Dory. So it's, yeah, one day at a time. And also, if you've got questions, don't be afraid to ask questions. There's no stupid questions. Like, I had no idea what I was in for, or what was happening, and this and that. And sometimes it's worth knowing what's going on. I ended up in ICU a couple of times during my treatment, and if I didn't know what they were doing, I could have been in serious trouble. They were wanting to give me Clexane injections to stop blood clotting, because while you're in ICU, you're laying down constantly. You're not allowed to get out of bed, and you can cause clotting. Well, my platelets were sitting at about 20 at that point in time. Had they had given me those Clexane injections, I could have been in a lot of trouble and actually bled out. So it was a matter of, what are you doing? They're like, we're giving you this. And I'm like, no, you're not. Had I not stood up for myself, I had the doctors come in later and go, thank you very much for telling the nurses not to give you that injection, because, yeah, your platelets are not great. So learning as much as you can while you can. Listening to your doctors is also a good thing, but also knowing yourself is even better. But yeah, the biggest thing is how I've gotten through this is one day at a time, and that's how I'm still doing it.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to bring the session to, I feel like we've kept you long enough, Rowena. Thank you so much for today.
No
I
worries.
feel like,
Thank you so much for having me, Laura. I appreciate it like so much. And if just this helps one person out, that's great. Like, Mum's like, I told her about this, and she's like, that's a really great opportunity, do it. And I said, no, I've already said yes. So I'm thinking about it. It was, yes, I will do it. And like the minute you said you wanted to, like, you sent me that email wanting to do a story on me, and then it turned into a 4-part series. It was like, wow. And then seeing the response from the first week, and even the weeks after, and even all my, like, people who are on my Facebook actually reading it going, oh my God, I didn't know you've gone through all that. It's like amazing, just like get more awareness out there.
yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. It's been such a privilege to be able to work with you, Rowena, on the story. Like, real highlight of my time here at LF at Leukemia Foundation. So thank you so much, and thank you for everyone for attending today.
Telling everyone how much you guys have helped me and my family out has been wonderful, and I hope it helps raise more funds for you guys.
Definitely will. Every bit helps. Thank you, Rowena, so much. And thank you to everyone for attending. Hopefully this will just be a first of many patient sessions. We see how valuable they are. But yeah, have a great Friday, everyone. And Rowena, stay safe.
No,
Okay,
thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for